Hi, I just thought I'd share this article here, which was published on the 6th of August this year, and it's from Evolve Politics, who are quite a trustworthy alternative news source. And according to former Conservative MP Louise Mensch, she's been tweeting that there are videotapes involving Donald Trump personally committing illegal sexual acts with trafficked victims. Well, first of all, any sexual act with a trafficked victim is illegal, because you're talking about a sex slave. So illegal sexual acts. So what is that with a child who's been trafficked? Apparently, when asked if victims are adults or minors, she said, "I'm not permitted to say." So she didn't say no or yes to whatever. She's not permitted to say. I'm not yet allowed to report on the detail of what Pimpetus does to his helpless victim on the tape. It's in possession of FBI Mueller. So she's given a name, and she's continued tweeting. And somebody else has put, "We know it's rape because it's an underage girl." Well, there are the two sworn affidavit statements of two independent witnesses. One who'd been hired by Epstein for his, paedophile island, as it turns out. And we know the guy has been convicted for paedophilia. And he was also a good friend of Donald Trump, who did visit him, and also the Clintons. We know these people are all all got the fingers in the same pies, as it were. Now, these two witnesses that had written sworn affidavits, sworn on oath, one of them was a victim of rape. She'd been recruited by the other witness, who herself had been claims that she was trafficked onto Epstein's island, and then later on, as she grew up, she was used to recruit other victims, and she had persuaded this young girl, who I think was about 13 or 14 at the time, to join her on Epstein's island. Well, she was invited to a party, that was it. Whether it was on Epstein's island, I'm not sure. But she was invited to a party, it was an Epstein party. And she was told that she'd meet lots of people there, and she'd get help, in a modelling career and all this. And when she got there, it turns out that she was going to be raped. She was Epstein's virgin for the night. And according to her details, there was a bit of a fight because Trump took her virginity, raped her, also physically assaulted her, and there was an argument between him and Epstein because apparently it was Epstein who was meant to take her virginity and not Trump. And then the other person, that was her statement, the witness victim survivor's statement, and the other statement in support of that, and also describing other acts between Donald Trump and a girl of 12, I think. She also corroborated that story. She admitted that she was a victim of trafficking, that she had been then put to work by Epstein to bring in this young woman, the key witness, and she basically corroborates this other woman's story. And that was all coming out the same year that Trump was suddenly decided to stand for presidency. And then as soon as he got made president, suddenly, or was it just before, at the height of his popularity anyway, these two witnesses suddenly withdrew their statements and decided not to go ahead with the prosecution. Now, a lot of people have been able to therefore say, oh well, it was fake news, it never really happened. But then we do also have Trump's own confessed recording, you know, the recording of his confession, and we do also have the lots of other women that have claimed that Trump has sexually assaulted them in the past. And so now we've got this story, apparently something to do with Russia, with his time in Russia, which at the very least suggests that he's compromised if Russia does indeed have tapes of him having sex with a trafficked minor, as this seems to be implying, or any victim of trafficking. So it's quite serious, and there is a body of evidence to support the lawful suspicions. So anyway, I went on to, you know, the article's also published here in this blog. I don't know what it's called. Is it Politics Pages? And it's basically repeating the article that's shown here, and it does say at the end, the story was also reported by a British popular political site, Evolve Politics, which is this one. So I had a look at to see if there was anything in the press about Louise Mensch, and this is The Guardian, quite a respectable newspaper, and she's apparently a patriot in service of the intelligence community. So she's, you know, she's quite a credible person, and but he doesn't mention anything here about her tweets in relation to the president and victims of trafficking. So in her tweets, Mensch is unsparing when it comes to making allegations, and she's repeatedly denounced that some figures in the Trump circle as traitors. She insists she has no fear of being sued for libel. I've never been sued because I've never been wronged, she said. Well, you know, they're pretty explosive tweets to make from somebody of Louise Mensch's credibility. So is Trump going to sue her? Well, it seems not, because, you know, instead here, and I am here now exposing the Young Turks, because I've had problems with them in the past about the way they're covering the news and what they choose to focus on and what they don't focus on. And again, this is more evidence, because they're saying she's batshit crazy because she's an insane drug addict, but he loves her. And my point is, you see, is that why isn't the mainstream media picking up on this? Because any Trump thing Trump tweets is immediately blasted out all over the place, and anybody with any credibility who says anything about him is immediately given full alternative and even mainstream media attention. So why isn't this woman, who's apparently deemed worthy enough to have a whole article written about her in The Guardian in the 17th, on Friday 17th of February, you know, she's being presented here as a credible person, but suddenly when she starts saying things about Trump, the Young Turks, who do absolutely nothing except bash Trump, aren't even prepared to entertain the idea that there might really be tapes out there. It's just that she's batshit crazy. And I noticed this other video here, which was done not just long after, claiming that she's a drug addict and has got serious mental health problems. Well, I'm sorry, hard bastard, and, you know, I'm not knocking you, because we can all be misled, but at the end of the day, she's not here saying that she's now taking drugs and she now has mental health problems. She said in her early 20s she experimented with drugs and realised they messed with her head and made her anxious. Not that they've given her serious mental health problems, because here we are on Friday the 17th February 2017, nothing here at all about that she's got serious mental health problems. In fact, she's being given quite a lot of credibility, and she did explain that the mental health problems of the drugs amounted to anxiety. Okay, it does not mean that she's totally crazy, she's off her head and she just tweets absolute nonsense, and therefore, because she's crazy, because she's batshit crazy, then Trump can just ignore her. But no, I'm sorry, young Turks, that is not the way it works. And you people are going to stand up and speak out on behalf of truth and justice, or you are all going to fall with the rest of the scum. Because there's no time for messing about now. Now, is Donald Trump not just a self-confessed bragging sex offender against adult women, is he also a paedophile? And I think this idea that because the two witnesses, you're talking about two sex abuse victim witnesses who had written sworn affidavit statements to take Trump to court for his abuses against them, against this one woman as a child. Apparently he raped her, violently assaulted and raped her. Then, what? She drops a statement the moment the guy gains massive popularity from the kind of people who we've witnessed in Charlottesville recently, and the kind of hatred and aggression that they display towards anybody who questions their beliefs or who attacks, in their eyes, their leader, their present God. Okay, so is it surprising that these two women, I mean, she did say, this witness, that she'd received death threats. She had to go anonymous. Excuse me. Sorry about that. I've probably lost track a bit now, but, you know, I think it is disturbing when witnesses are suddenly withdraw their sworn affidavits against somebody who, just before he becomes, and just as he's becoming President of the United States. And really, I don't think that it should be legal for people to make such serious allegations against such a prominent figure and then withdraw their statements, because there's no smoke without fire, is there? And really, do you want even any doubt whatsoever to be hanging over the person that's going to be taking full control of the country? And I do find it disturbing that the mainstream media and a lot of the alternative media have totally ignored this story, and they're all very happy to, you know, make fun of Trump and every statement he makes, and they're having a laugh, and it's all a big, oh, come and listen to us, see what quippy comments we can make about Trump. But when it comes to something serious like this, and nobody's picking up on it from a credible source, who is credible enough in February to warrant an article in The Guardian about her, but then as soon as she starts saying anything about Trump, she's batshit crazy. Oh, and she's a drug addict, she's got serious mental health problems. It says nothing here about she's got serious mental health problems. She said she experienced anxiety, which can happen from taking a lot of drugs. Now, I've been watching this, the best democracy money can buy. Why this wasn't released before the 2016 election, I don't really know. But everybody in America needs to see it, because as it says here, when Donald Trump says this election is rigged, he should know his buddies are rigging it. And there's no doubt here. and what's explained here and what's shared here, every single person in America needs to watch it. Americans need to wake up and understand that their country has been taken over by internal tyranny. Okay? Tyrants are running the country. You need to stand up, people. Do your duty. Honour your constitution. Remove tyranny from power. And it has just got worse and worse and worse and worse. Now recently I've been having a go at Chomsky for his unwillingness to entertain the idea that 9/11 was not the work of his Muslim terrorists, but was actually an operation performed by key agents within the American establishment and authorities and government and military. And, you know, I made a video criticising him, and I was thinking perhaps I was being a bit too hard on the guy, really, you know. And then a friend today sent me a link to a Corbett report video, and I know I've had issues with Corbett about his coverage of Hampstead, but nonetheless he's absolutely spot on what he says about Corbett, about Chomsky. And he shared a clip in that video. I'll leave you the link to it under this, but he shared a clip in that video where Chomsky's being asked about 9/11 and the fact that the official story just doesn't match with the facts. And he's like, well, so what if it was an inside job? So what? So what? You know, apparently we've got more important things to think about. What? More important things to think about? As James Corbett rightly says, than the fact that your own government's involved in committing a terrorist attack against its own people in order to justify war with Iraq and Afghanistan and wherever else in the Middle East. I tell you, this is really serious. The fact that Chomsky has ignored the glaring facts of 9/11, because apparently you need a physics degree to be able to question the fact that a plane hitting a building turns steel, concrete, glass, or the entire contents of the building and everyone in it into dust. That is quite normal, you know. That collapses into its own footprint, and not just one building, 2 buildings, and then also building 7 collapses, turns to dust, collapses into its own footprint from what? A few office fires, you know. And the guy's like going on about scientific papers and what have you. It's like, sorry, Chomsky, the scientific papers have been written. A secondary school kid understands that level of physics. So, you know, there's a serious level of disinformation going on, and I do feel most angry to these type of organisations like the Young Turks, okay, and people like Chomsky, who the general public and the so-called intelligentsias among them really look up to these people. It's like, yeah, they know what they're talking about. But they are ignorant bastards. Look what they're ignoring. Look what they're ignoring, and ask yourself why they're ignoring it. Because why is it that the Young Turks can pick up on other tweets from other people, the kind of people that get articles written about them in The Guardian as being involved in intelligence, but when it comes to Louise Mensch, oh, apparently she's totally mad, and President Trump, he ain't going to sue her. He's not going to sue her because she's lying and he feels offended by what she said. He's not going to sue her because she's not worth suing, because she's mentally ill, because she used to take drugs. She experimented with hard drugs in her 20s. But that was before she became a Conservative MP. So was she that mentally ill then that she became an MP? No, she said she stopped taking the drugs and she sorted herself out. She wouldn't even say what drugs she'd taken because she didn't want to give any publicity to those substances. But she said they made her anxious. So it's like straight away you'll see the alternative media attacking her within the alternative media where the story has been published, but meanwhile the mainstream media just totally ignores it, and the so-called credible alternative media like the Young Turks and others are quick to claim that she's crazy, batshit mad. Because, you know, obviously there's no evidence to suggest that Trump's a sex offender, is there? There's no evidence whatsoever to suggest that he might like very young girls. And as I say, you know, I mean, I've rented this for a couple of days, and I do suggest everybody watches it. I hope it becomes freely available, because as I say, everybody needs to see it, especially in America and in Britain. And you know, the best democracy money can buy. Well, it ain't a democracy that the money's buying. You're talking about an oligarchical dictatorship using all its tentacles of controlled mainstream media and controlled alternative media, who collude in bamboozling the public and herding you all down specific thought paths. And while they sit having a giggle about Trump's latest childish behaviour, some serious shit's going down. I mean, this guy's got his finger on the nuclear button, for goodness sake. And these alternative media think they can have a laugh and they can just brush aside serious news like this from a guy who's been behaving as erratically and strangely as him. No. And as I say, everybody in America needs to watch this, because the amount of votes that have been stolen off people and what's been going on, the way that they took over American car manufacturing and then basically blackmailed the government to giving them $12 billion in order to keep jobs, and then immediately took the $12 billion. All the share prices rose immediately from, what was it, 69 cents to $22, and then they packed up and took 100,000 jobs to China, and all the people that were dependent on them jobs, who'd been given mortgages by the same bankers that were backing these bastards, oh, suddenly they've lost their homes. Next minute, they can't vote because they've got no home. If you've got no address, you can't vote. And just so many things that they've done. Seriously, you do need to watch it, Americans. This is so serious. And now, I was feeling bad about my video. I'll leave you a copy of it. Notice all the dislikes. Just remember, I've got an online following of pedo sadists, gang stalker trolls, okay, who really dislike me because I speak out on behalf of child rights and I call a spade a spade. And I'm demanding justice for all the children implicated and involved in the Hampstead case. So, you know, I've got the whole pedo sadist establishment of Britain don't like me. But as I say, don't be put off by the dislikes. Understand, I am being targeted and heavily trolled, and that's why I've had to disable comments on my videos. But as I say, you know, I made that video about Chomsky yesterday and I was really annoyed, and I do feel seriously let down by him and other intelligentsias, because when he doesn't speak out, then that means the go ahead that everybody who's above what? Are you above reality? Actually, they are. But apparently that's alright. That's a perfectly sane place to be, according to Chomsky. And he then sets the scene for the intelligentsia. Oh, no, we don't talk about 9/11. We don't go into any of that. That's all conspiracy theory stuff. No, we're not going to talk about her tweets, because, you know, let's just dismiss her as mad because she experimented with hard drugs in her early 20s. And she spoke out about it as a means of trying to help other people not get involved in that scene in the first place. And that's why she refused to even name what drugs she'd tried. So is she batshit crazy? Were those two witnesses lying, or were they not heavily intimidated by a very, very extremely powerful man with a huge following of the kind of people who were prepared to maim and kill over a statue? A statue commemorating somebody who fought on behalf of slavery, to keep slavery. You know, that's the kind of consciousness you're dealing with. You're talking about two, what? CSA victim witnesses who are already damaged and very vulnerable. They've been receiving death threats. No, no, no. Why is this not being covered? Why is the mainstream media ignoring it? Why are the Young Turks ignoring it? Except to claim that Mensch is mad, batshit crazy. And if it is to do with the Russians, and they've got tapes on him, then you are dealing with a compromised presidency. This is serious. This is a lot more serious than President Clinton having sexual relations with Monica Lewinsky in his office. It's 100 times, 1,000 times more serious. President Clinton wasn't talking about war with North Korea and war with Iran and invading Venezuela. He wasn't talking about denying healthcare to millions and millions of American citizens. So this is a very, very, very serious situation, and people do need to wake up. Ask questions now. Ask questions about what is not being reported in the news, and ask why. And I am not prepared to dismiss Louise Mensch because in her 20s she experimented with drugs and experienced anxiety problems. Okay? You know, especially in Britain, where I'm looking at a parliament whose toilets were tested and every one of them had traces of cocaine in them. You know, when our Chancellor of the Exchequer, his senior advisor was caught, what, last year or the year before, in a crack den, smoking crack. They're all, half of them are all on drugs now. At least Louise Mensch no longer takes them, and she's not taken them since her 20s. The rest of them are mostly on drugs. They do take every kind of drug. And they're running our banks on them as well. And yeah, like I say, this video, there's just no getting away from it. The information here is absolutely damning. That's why they can say that. He should know his buddies are rigging it. It's rigged. The whole system's rigged. Everybody needs to know it. And it does explain why Trump and his team were so up in arms about the fact that, what, the inauguration did not attract the kind of support that they expected, or rather they wanted. Because why? Because they were scared. Because actually, perhaps hardly anybody did vote for Trump. Perhaps they did literally steal the election, and that's why there was hardly anybody there at his inauguration when you compared it to Obama. And you know, you look at the whole Obama agenda and you know, well, if he got in on a rigged election, then the establishment must have wanted it, which they did, because he was a sweetener, a black face to appease the black population and the white, white people that support black people as well, to appease them two groups. Like, yeah, some sanity's in, while the insanity continued, because that's all Obama did. He was just a front for the insanity to continue. But everybody, oh, Obama's going to be great, oh, first black president. That took precedence, didn't it? The fact that he was the first black president. But that was used, the very fact that he had him in for 2 terms, because he did a very useful job. He did everything the system wanted, but they did grant him his concession of Obamacare, the Affordable Health Care Act. Okay, they allowed him that one concession, but everything else he followed on. He just picked up where Bush had left off, and he was there to even more wind up the so-called alternative right, which have explained the wrong. They're not right, they're wrong. The left is right, okay? And anything extreme of right is wrong, whether it's left, right, or in the middle. Because, the right people are both left and right to serve one body, as I explained in the Chomsky video. So it's a very serious matter, and I do think people need to wake up. And really, if this is true, and how would she dare to say it? Somebody with her credibility, how would she dare to say it unless she knew that it was true? And why isn't he going to sue her? And I do not believe for one moment that if he doesn't sue her, it's because he's just dismissed her as mad and crazy. Okay? So I'm sorry, Young Turks, you've been called out again, as I called you out on ignoring the evidence of Pizzagate, okay, and other news medias, for ignoring the lack of total ignorance of justice for children in the Hampstead case, which, as I say, it doesn't matter whether you believe the children or not, it's whether or not you believe children have a right to justice, and that fully satisfied arrest criteria should be fully acted upon. And again, we're getting back down to the fully satisfied arrest criteria here, aren't we? The fully satisfied lawful suspicion. And how can a guy who's got lawful suspicion hanging over his head relating to sex offences and even sexual crimes against children, that is serious. And you've got him with his finger on the nuclear button. I'm sorry, American, you are going to have to wake up, and you're going to have to call out every shill media. You're just going to have to call them out. I know it's hard because you love these people, the Young Turks. I was there, oh, they're lovely, they're lovely. This person, oh, lovely, lovely, yeah, brilliant, what they're saying, so true. Chomsky, oh, it's so brilliant, brilliant. But then, damn, you notice, oh, how could he fall down there? How could he fall down there? Why does it matter? So what? What does it matter? He said about if 9/11 was an inside job. So what? So what? So what? Well, why are you writing all your books, Chomsky? Are we going to say the same? This is what we're going to say about him. That all the lawful suspicion is there, but we're all going to go, so what? The guy's president, leave him be. Really? Well, what can I say? What can I say? Except, wake up, hit reality, watch this. I'm sorry that it's... You do have to pay for it. I paid $3.99 to have it for 48 hours. Okay? You can stream it. But please do watch it. If you're an American citizen, you need to watch it. You need to know this stuff. And it really is up to everybody now, of every single background, faith, ethnicity, class, age. We the same people have got to come together. We need to come together and we need to address this. We need to address it in Britain. America needs to address it. The people of Europe need to address it in each of their countries, because there is an agenda going on here, and we're talking about corporate communism. Okay, that is what is being imposed on the world now. It's corporate communism, and the cronies at the top, the billionaires, well, they're all going to be enjoying socialism for themselves as their own little privilege. Socialism for them, corporate communism for us. So, as I say, I'll leave you my Chomsky video under this. I'll leave you a link so you can stream this video, but please do stream it and show it. Invite other people round to your house to watch it. If you're a part of a community, show it if you can in your community hall. Make sure everybody that you know watches it. And, you know, it doesn't matter if you're hard left, hard right. We need to understand that the time has come now for people to wake up. And just recently I published this note here, which is Justice for the Truth, and I'll leave you a link to this under here, which does explain a lot about what's going on. I'll just quickly scroll through it, and if you want to pause it you can, but you can just click on the link underneath. And it is very, very, very important that people wake up. As I say here, indeed it is only through force of the truth a lie can be defeated, and it is in eradicating those lies their slave hosts are liberated into love. Souls are released from the icy grip of antiquity to come alive and truly live in the 21st century. And I think we do need to understand that, you know, as well, on a compassionate level, not to bring change by hate and aggression, even though these people that have betrayed us do inspire anger, and we've got a right to feel that anger and express it, but at the same time we don't lose a grip of our compassion and to treat people humanely and to make lawful arrests. We don't need riots and madness. That's what the establishment wants, but we do need to do this in a very organised way, and people from the top are going to need to take actions that the public will support, you know, because as I say, at the moment we're living under a do what thy will law, which is Aleister Crowley's satanic law. It shall not be the whole of the law, okay? It is up to us, because we can no longer trust. You can't trust your medias, you can't trust your alternative media. We do need to get real and wake up and accept facts and ask ourselves why. Why isn't any of the mainstream media picking up on this? And why is the alternative media only picking up on it in order to suggest that Louise Mensch is batshit crazy? Who is really batshit crazy here? I tell you, it's we the people, if we keep swallowing this bullshit, okay?